Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and myself, James Marsh. On this episode, we are reviewing Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut, Tick, Tick, Boom.
And remember, before we set out on the film journey, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, ding that bell. Join. Hey, but before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you along for the journey. Come join us. And also don't forget that this is a spoiler review. So we're going to be talking all aspects of Lin-Manuel Miranda's Tick, Tick, Boom. James, give us a little synopsis.
Okay, so this is, as I said, directorial debut of Lin-Manuel Miranda, who people should know from Hamilton, his success there, and In the Heights, and then he's been doing some stuff with Disney with Encanto, for which he's Oscar nominated this year. And
we're off
also,
to a good start today.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Smooth, professional, slick. This is how we do it.
This is.
I'll just start the whole thing again. I can't remember.
I know. I can't believe. I don't think we screwed up this much. I haven't screwed up that part this much since we started. Well, I almost want to have a drink or something. Just loosen up a little bit.
Well, we do say in our description that we meet over drinks to discuss movies, but I don't think we've ever done that.
No, I don't think we do. You know what? I got a beer. I'm gonna go pull.
You know what?
Out.
I'll grab a beer. Why not?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's Friday.
Okay,
Why not? I say it's nothing too exciting. It's a Kirin, but it'll do.
We're both Japanese. We're going Asahi here.
It was a toss up between the two.
Might even
cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Friday. So as I said, yes, this is the directorial debut of Lin-Manuel Miranda, massive Tony Award winning Broadway star these days from Hamilton. In the Heights, he's been working with Disney, Oscar nominated this year for Encanto. But this is his directorial debut on film. This is the story of Jonathan Larson, incredibly influential member of the musical theatre community, who is most famous for creating and writing Rent. But tragically, he did not live long enough to see it become the great success, the great transformation it had on what it meant to be a Broadway show, because he tragically died of an aneurysm, I think. An aortic aneurysm, I believe the film tells us, the day before its first public showing. This is sort of a combination of things, this film. It is, on the one hand, it is a sort of a screen adaptation of Larson's previous musical, which was called Tick, Tick, Boom, which was kind of sort of a live show with him on the piano and a band and a couple of vocalists. So in part, it's a dramatization of that, but then it's also part biography as well. Things that he talks about in the Tick, Tick, Boom show are then brought to life on screen to detail his life. He was a young, struggling artist in New York who was putting great pressure on himself, very much aware that his idol, Stephen Sondheim, had already created his first Broadway hit before he was 30. And we meet Jonathan Larson, portrayed here by Andrew Garfield, weeks before his 30th birthday. The pressures of putting the final touches to his latest, or his first great show, really, called Superbia, which he's been working on for 8 years, which is a sci-fi musical expose of you name it. Is coming close to having its first ever sort of public workshop, and things are not going smoothly. It's fair to say.
You know, James, I really enjoyed this, and we've talked about previous musicals that transition to film, and I've said how they tend to underwhelm me. They tend to, even if I like it, it never reaches the feeling I get when I have that live musical theater experience. Having said that, I'm going to be hypocritical today. I really like this. I mean, obviously, Tick, Tick, Boom was a musical theater, was live before it made the transition to film. I had never seen it. I'm starting to realize if I haven't already seen the film, the live musical, then I'm a little more open to the film. I also think, whereas in West Side Story, I struggle with the whole nature of the film that I mentioned before, kind of the inherent cheesiness, the, hey, copper, that kind of, it doesn't work for me. Whereas in this film, I could really identify with the characters. There's this creative aspect that a lot of creative types, and I love to think of myself, a lot of us, we all have things within us that we want to come out, that we want to see flourish. And it's a wonderful opportunity in this movie to kind of get in his shoes, feel the pain that he feels, feel the disappointment. I think we've all in our lives, I'll speak for myself, have not always attained certain thresholds we thought we would hit by certain points of our life. And this is where, like West Side Story, and I feel I want to draw the comparison since that's in the same Academy Awards season, and they're all up there for awards this year. I don't identify with any aspect of West Side Story. There's no person I identify. There's no situation I identify with. It's a completely foreign thing going on. But when I watch Tick, Tick, Boom, I'm like, oh, I felt that before. Oh, I know what that's like. I know what it's like. Should I trade off my dreams for financial security, which is what Jonathan Larson has to constantly be faced with throughout the whole film. Do I give up on this thing that's within me and go for the security that I'm starting to see my other friends and peers? They're making those trade-offs. We all had these dreams together, and now he's got the office in the corner. He's got financial stability. She's, maybe I need to start thinking about that too. And so I really enjoyed this movie I get to live a little vicariously for a couple hours through this guy. And I found it
his
delightful.
Bohemian existence.
That's it. I get to kind of, I could just, let me in there. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's the great sort of tragedy, is that so much of it is the pressure that he's imposed upon himself and these sort of arbitrary goals that he's set for himself. They have all come up together. His girlfriend Susan was a dancer, and she overcame sort of this great hurdle of an injury that basically dictated to her, you will never be able to do this at the highest level. And she was totally cool with it. She was able to roll with it and go, the fact that I'm able to do it at all is enough. Mm-hmm. And then his old roommate, Michael, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Who was an actor, and they were like, they've been roommates for a long time. And then he's like, you know what? I'm not a great actor at the end of the day, yeah. and I'm not going to get the parts, and I'm okay with that. And so he gets an advertising job, and like you say, he gets the corner office and the nice apartment with central heating and running water and all the rest of it, and he's comfortable with that. But Larson, for himself, he's got this romanticized ideal of the tragic artist, who must suffer for his art at all costs, and he's willing to put himself under incredible stress, incredible duress, sacrifice everything else for the sake of this show. And it's all about the show, and he's deluded to a great degree. He's like, once I get this workshop done, Sondheim will come, the other great luminaries of Broadway will come, and I will get the deal that I feel that I'm deserved. It will be my big break, and I will get it. And his girlfriend at one point, that she's getting increasingly frustrated that he's putting the show before their relationship. And she says to him, well, what happens after the show if you don't become an overnight sensation? What happens then? And he has no response for it. He cannot conceive of the very likely scenario.
Yeah. That's not a reality he's willing to entertain.
No, but he's willing to sacrifice every part of his reality to fuel this dream that he has. And on the one side, you're like, yes, that's incredibly admirable that someone would have that degree of drive and dedication towards achieving their goal. I mean, anybody who's ever started any kind of project that has gone unfinished or is still ongoing, and you're like, yeah, I'll finish it one day, I'm still chipping away at it. I think we've all got things like that.
Yeah.
To see somebody so willing to put everything else out of mind and chase that one goal is incredibly enviable. But at the same time, if you look at the result of that, his day-to-day life and existence, it's pretty miserable, to be honest.
Yes. No, and a lot of those bohemian creative types, there is that kind of existence that's it looks maybe a little glamorous from my living room watching it in TV, but if you're actually grinding it out every day, it's going to lose a lot of its luster.
And I think that, you know, that I mean, I don't know the details, but one suspects Lin-Manuel Miranda had a similar journey.
yeah. There's definitely a sympathy coming from the director here. Like, he knows
sure. When he's singing that song, Bo 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 Bohemia, about, you know, what it means, you know, there's a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor to that song about suffering for one's art, you know, and about the squalor that they had to live in and they had to endure. But it's all for, you know, but they're all in on the secret that it's for the greater good and that they will thrive. Obviously, it's a Larson song, but one feels that Miranda is completely on their side the whole time.
Absolutely.
You know, he has lived this dream as well and suffered for his art countless numbers of times.
And another point I want to make is what's kind of hanging over this whole film is the knowledge that we know that Jonathan Larson is going to die at a young age and tragically, and it's going to be his honors are only going to come
posthumously.
Posthumously, thank you.
Yeah.
And the whole title of the film, Tick, Tick, Boom. And we keep hearing that. And the references in the whole film keep coming back to tick, tick, tick. Time is going by. Time. And you know when the boom is coming. The boom is coming. And again, this is something that we all relate to, especially as we get older. You realize that the boom is coming, whatever it is. And that tick, tick, tick. And it's this feeling, I've got to do this, I've got to get this done. And that energy just was exuded in this film. And it kept me on edge, knowing that this is all funneling towards an end that is going to be bittersweet.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the conversation we were having about worst person in the world, where it's all about your vantage point gives you a
different
perspective on your own life. And they're all at this sort of young, idealistic time of their life where they've got their whole future ahead of them and they are in the position to shape their own future. And it's the choices. They all believe that it's the choices you make now that are going to shape the rest of your life. And that's why the decisions that are being made are so, you know, dramatic and over the top. What we are, and like you said, what we know is that the boom of the title is just around the corner and is going to end it all. So you're kind of on his side. You're kind of like, you got to do it now because, you know, you're not going to live to see 40.
Yeah, we have the luxury of being in the God seat where we know how this plays out. We know it's easy to tell somebody to keep going when you know what the end is going to be. You're going to produce Rent. You're going to produce one of the greatest musicals and highly regarded musicals ever. Your name is going to be remembered. But at that point in his life, he does not know that. In fact, his two previous attempts were met with less than stellar success.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the show is all about him creating or getting an audience to at least experience this epic science fiction musical superbia, which he even struggles to articulate exactly what it is and what it's about. But what it proves to be is an invaluable calling card. What it proves to be is a showcase for his talent, his writing abilities, his musical abilities, and he eventually does get the right people to see it, and then they respond with that most crushing but inevitable of questions. Essentially, it's like, great, what else you got? You know, they're like, this is genius. No one is ever going to finance it.
Right.
So what's next?
Yeah.
And it comes, and it's nailed down hard for him. That's the life of a writer. See, you just keep going, you keep churning them out and hoping that one day one of them will be a hit.
You know, and this is the tough thing that he has to deal with. Like, his friend knows I'm not a great actor. Okay, so now I can mentally move with comfort into an alternative life journey, a trajectory, because I know that I'm not. Whereas for Larson, he keeps getting the little things of encouragement. People love his work. Stephen Sondheim comes and tells him, you know, it's good. You need an extra song. You need a song to bring it all together. But you know, you've got one of the greats telling you, hey, you're almost there, buddy. You could do this. And so, you know, rather than being in I'm either bad or I'm successful, he's in this middle world. It's like the second best hand in poker. You know, it keeps you in, and it keeps you throwing the money in. It's like if you just got a bad hand, you just fold. Like his former roommate and his buddy, he knows his hand is not that strong. He folded that a while ago. But I think I got a good hand here. I'm going to keep putting money in. But you don't know. Do I really have the best hand? And that's the feeling you get in this film, is he keeps getting enough encouragement from friends and peers and those that around him to keep him going, but not enough to give him the success and to get him to stop being a waiter.
I mean, yeah, well, this is it. It's almost like that those words of encouragement are his undoing, because they're just, like you said, they're just enough to keep him going, but at the expense of everything else. He sacrifices everything else for his art, to the point where he has no backup plan. He has nothing to fall back on. You know, if this doesn't work, or in the meantime, you know, people are, you know, offering him other work. You know, he's taken to that sort of a brainstorming session to come up with a new name for this new product.
Yes, yeah.
Mike also wants him to come in and work at the advertising firm writing jingles. He's like, you write jingles all day long about nonsense. And he's, you know, why don't you get paid for that? He's like, well, no, it's just to test me so that
that's right,
I can write my musical.
I'm an artist. I'm beyond this corporate.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you're not. You're a waiter at a diner.
Yeah.
You know, with a hobby, as they say. and you just know that this is all just as much Miranda talking as it is Larson. You know, that whole thing about, you know, you've been working for years and years on this one project, and it's not, you know, everyone says, yeah, you're great, but we're not going to do this. So what's the next one? And we know now that that's what Lin-Manuel Miranda went through as well.
Yeah.
You know, that In the Heights was a much earlier project, for example.
Exactly.
That he managed to get produced, but it flopped completely. You know, it cost a lot of money and it went nowhere. And then he went on and did Hamilton, and only after the success of Hamilton could he then come back and do In the Heights properly the way he wanted to do it, or do it as a movie. And so often that's the case. You hear with any kind of artistic venture that the thing that's that brings artists to your attention, the thing that makes them a success, is almost never their first film, for example. You know, the first film that they succeed in actually making, it's not the first one that they wrote, it's probably the 10th one that they wrote.
Right. But
they were just hearing no, rejection, and then somebody saw something in one of them, it just tickled their funny bone or whatever, and they went, oh, let's make that. And then as soon as that happened, they're like, okay, what else you got? He's like, well, I've got these 9 other ones that you all passed on last year. It's like, oh, well, now we'll do them all.
Yeah. I got them in the drawer. They're all ready to go, you know.
Well, it's exactly that. It's having that kind of commitment, to sort of investing your all in one thing, having that finished thing rejected. You know, the only thing that's going to drive you forward is the idea that it's going to be accepted. But then, but when it's not accepted, to then just keep going and pick up a new thing and go, okay, I'll try again. I'll try with something else. And I think that's the hardest part.
You know, and there's something to be said, because, you know, like the song Seasons of Love from Rent, anybody who hears that song, you immediately, you know this song. I've always felt it must be wonderful to have at least made one song that everyone in the room can immediately start singing, or to go, oh yeah, I like that one. You know, that it just, I remember a few years ago, Tammy and I went to the Watch to go see Chris, his lead singer of Spin Doctors. And he just did a little acoustic number at the Watch. And he was just chatting with everybody. And obviously the Spin Doctors, they had 2-3 pretty big hits back in the 90s, ones that everybody kind of knows. And somebody asked him, did you ever
Three
get tired?
Princes was that big one,
Princes,
right?
And a Pocket Full of Kryptonite. And
oh yeah,
There was another, I think there was another one. And I remember him getting asked the question, do you ever get tired of doing these songs? And his answer was along these lines. He says, no, I never get tired. He says, I find it great. I'm very grateful that I was able to write a couple songs that as soon as I start strumming them out, the whole bar kicks in, you know, and he said something along those lines. And so Jonathan Larson, obviously he's not with us anymore, and he didn't get to indulge the accolades that he deserves, but he did it. I mean, in the end, and that was what makes this movie really a triumph of that creative spirit, is he did push through. He did kind of make it happen. And in the end, there is a musical and there is a song that everyone knows, everyone remembers. And that's why I came away from this film with a spring in my step and a smile on my face.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, even though it does sort of plunder some pretty dark territory that we haven't even really touched on yet, which is that this is all unfolding sort of at the same time as the AIDS crisis in what we talking about, the late 80s.
Yeah.
You know, and he says at one point, you know, last year I went to 3 of my friends' funerals, and the oldest guy was 27. You know, and then you've got a friend in the midst of who dies during the course of the film, and then Michael reveals that he's HIV positive.
Yes,
and obviously, you know, that only exacerbates this feeling that he has of, you know, time is finite, time is running out. You know, for him, that's the boom just around the corner.
Exactly.
You know, I don't think he's necessarily afraid that he's going to get it or whatever, but just that nobody knows how much time has got left. The great irony being that we know exactly how much time he has. And I just felt it was incredibly sort of well handled, sensitively handled, you know, because we know, you know, how he would use those experiences and put them into his work later on. But I felt that it was quite delicately and sensitively handled and really appreciatively done in Miranda's film.
One of the things that I learned in this film, and then subsequently as I kind of did a little research on it, was because of the nature of Rent, I assumed Jonathan Larson was gay.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
And he's not. And that comes across clear in this film. But what he was responding to is he had a lot of close friends that were gay, and he is writing and chronicling and producing a musical about the experiences of those he loves. You know, his community is coming under an attack, and so he writes this musical to deal with it. And I think it's just wonderful that I'm trying to think how to say this, but it'd been one thing if a gay man wrote a gay themed musical dealing with AIDS in a particular time of life, or not time of life, but when it was occurring. But for somebody to feel compelled, like, this is something that means a lot to me, I want to do this for my friends, and that it comes across. If you've ever seen Rent, and now knowing him a little better through Tick, Tick, Boom, I came to appreciate Jonathan Larson more than I originally had.
Yeah, this is the great confession I have to make, is I've never seen Rent.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, not the film, not the show, nothing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a great deal about Jonathan Larson ahead of this. I knew he was young and that he had died, and that he basically changed musical theatre, or certainly changed sort of Broadway.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any of the details in that. And I think this film, works so well in doing all of those things in a relatively sort of, or a deceptively complicated way. You know, it feels very effortless. It feels very simple. It feels like it's purely just telling this story about him trying to put on a show, but it's actually telling you so much more. It's working in so many layers of this story, and telling the wider story at the same time. That's why I'm amazed, actually, that it's Lin-Manuel Miranda's first movie as a director. I think it's directed exceptionally well. There's so much creativity in the directorial and storytelling choices, the way that he sort of blends different sort of levels of reality, one on top of the other. You know, it's not just an adaptation of the play, of the show Tick, Tick, Boom. It's also this life story. It also has these sort of massive musical numbers of its own, and it has these sort of escapist, sort of almost dreamlike sequences to it. and then it's anchored by this incredible performance by Andrew Garfield, who really knocks it out of the park. He's phenomenal.
I'm really coming to love Andrew Garfield. Like whatever he's in, I'm enjoying him. Although Tom Hanks was never a singer, I don't know why he invokes in me the same response I get with Tom Hanks.
Okay,
it just
the kind of everyman versatility.
Yeah. I'm trying to put it in the words. I never connected these dots before, but as I'm thinking about Andrew Garfield and the way I feel about him, I was thinking this is the way I feel about Tom Hanks. I just love whatever he's in. I love the joy he brings. There's something whimsical about Andrew Garfield. There's something joyful in every performance I see him in. I just saw him as Jim Baker in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which, although he wasn't nominated, I think he did a brilliant job of portraying Jim Baker. And then, of course, in Spider-Man, of the three Spider-Mans, who would have guessed that my favorite Spider-Man in that movie, the latest one, would be Andrew Garfield? And I'm just finding more and more when I see Andrew Garfield in a film, I want to buy a ticket. Sign me up. I don't care what it is. I want to see Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I think the great sort of success story of Spider-Man No Way Home, beyond the fact that, yes, it's made $1 billion and it's saved cinemas and all the rest of it, is that it felt such a cathartic moment for Andrew Garfield, because he was kind of the Spider-Man that got dumped on.
He did.
Or just got dumped by the studio. I think I saw something that said that he only found out that he wasn't doing another Spider-Man when he saw that Tom Holland had been cast as Spider-Man or something really tragic like that.
Sounds like Hollywood.
Yeah, very much so. And apparently, yeah, that's not unusual. But I think he's got great sort of versatility. He always seems very kind of like approachable. His characters, he grounds them. They're never sort of. They're never these kind of grandstanding, over the top theatrical performances. I mean, this is theatrical in the musical theater sense of the word, but not in the kind of pantomime, over the top kind of way. And I think it's incredibly admirable. And his choices are never the obvious ones. I mean, he could have gone down either the action hero route or the romantic lead route, but he's chosen some really interesting, challenging parts along the way.
This is going to sound a little cheesy, but as you're describing him and you talk about versatility, I was trying to still connect him to Tom Hanks and why he invokes similar feelings. And I think there's part of it is the word trust. There's something trusting about this man. When Tom Hanks is on screen, I trust him. When I see Andrew Garfield on screen, I trust him. There's something about what they bring to their characters that makes me want to trust them. And yeah, it's a fun experience to have, and I would love to see Andrew Garfield get the accolades due him, I think.
Yeah, I know, it's funny you say that. And as soon as you were sort of saying that you trust him, I absolutely see that. And for that reason, I'm just thinking I would love to see him play like a serial killer or something, because you do trust him, you really would let your guard down around him. And I think he could be incredibly creepy if he wanted to be.
The boyfriend from hell. He could be the boyfriend from hell.
And almost a kind of Ted Bundy type, he's so disarming. And I think he has this great sort of charisma, and you do warm to him. You do feel you're in safe hands, and you do feel that this is it's a nice guy. There's something very wholesome about the choices that he makes. Some people have even sort of said it's slightly sanctimonious. And a lot of the choices of the characters that he plays have a kind of a religious association, and it's like so. But a lot of people kind of pointed that out and asked about his particular choices and whether there's an element of sort of self-aggrandizement, but I see him as very humble and very grounded. And I mean, his work speaks for itself. I mean, you see him in this and you see him in other films, and he's
Social Network.
Well, from the social, I mean, I think that's the first thing a lot of people saw him in. I mean, I know he was a child actor before that, but I think for a lot of people, this was like the first big thing where he's the victim of the whole thing, really. He's the guy that was just shat on from a great height by Jesse Eisenberg, or Jesse Eisenberg's character.
Yeah, that's right.
Not poor Jesse Eisenberg, but what's his face? Why have I blanked on Zuckerberg?
Zuckerberg.
Thank
Mark
you.
Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook.
And from then he's kind of had the choice to go wherever he wanted to. And yes, he did Spider-Man, but beyond that, it's been fascinating watching him sort of evolve and watching the choices that he's made. And that continues here. I think it's one of the best things he's ever done. Mm-hmm. I think he said before that he didn't even know that he could sing, not really, you know, and Lin-Manuel Miranda just kind of put him on the spot, and this is what came out. And he was like, oh, great, you can do it. You're going to do it. So, it's really impressive.
And the soundtrack was great. I downloaded it on Spotify. I love the musical numbers. That was another box that was ticked for me. This was just a fun movie all around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a big shout out to Alexandra Shipp, who plays his long-suffering girlfriend, Susan.
Yes, long-suffering.
And the duet that she has with Vanessa Hudgens. Vanessa Hudgens, who was kind of unrecognizable to me in this. Yeah. I mean, I know that she's got a... obviously, she was in High School Musical, right? So she's got a background in musical theater. But it was. I was like halfway through the movie when I was like, "Is that Vanessa Hudgens?" You know, she's kind of. Mm-hmm. I didn't recognize it was her, but she was great. And it's the big song. It's the big song that that his musical has been lacking and needed, and that he spent the whole movie not writing. And then when it happens at the end, you're just like, oh, this is brilliant. You know, this is fantastic. This is what our musical, our film has been building to, and I thought it did brilliantly. And I'm a big fan of Alexandra Shipp anyway. I think she's great, and it was good to see her in this.
I was unfamiliar with her, but now she's on my radar, and I'll be looking out for more of her.
Yeah, well, she's in. It's probably one of the worst films she's in, but she's in the new generation of X-Men movies. She's Storm.
Of course, yes.
I think yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yes,
okay. Then I am familiar with her. I remember,
but I think that was only in like X-Men Apocalypse. So right. I think which isn't particularly good. Yeah. But she's done some other stuff, like she's in a film called Tragedy Girls. I want to say that was her, and which is a lot of fun. But yeah, she's on the way up, and she's definitely an actress to keep an eye on for sure.
Good to go. So James, what are we going to score this out of?
I think, shall we score it out of some Sunday brunch mimosas or something from the what's it called, the Moonshine Diner or whatever that place is called.
Yeah. Let's. How many Sunday brunch mimosas? How many?
Well, I thought I would let you go first.
Okay.
Because you're often agonizing over the fact that that I go first. So I thought
then I always feel like I'm copying you, because we're always, not always, but we tend to line up a fair bit. Like I've said, I thought this was a delightful movie to watch. I loved Andrew Garfield's performance. I agree with you, Lin-Manuel. I keep wanting to say Noriega, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Different guy.
You would not have guessed that this was his first feature film debut. I have nothing more to say other than I'm going to give it 4 Sunday brunch mimosas, because this is a great movie.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. Everything kind of clicked for me. The performances are great. The music is excellent. I think it's directed superbly. It's also Oscar nominated for its editing. I think the editing is incredibly slick. You know, you're jumping around time frames, different settings, back and forth all the way. I think that works incredibly well. I imagine, if I knew a little bit more about the theater world and contemporary Broadway stars, I know that whole Sunday brunch sequence, I know that like everybody in that is a bona fide Broadway celeb doing a cameo, but there's a few faces I recognize, but I throw my hands up and say that I am largely ignorant in the ways of musical theater and Broadway, and I'm comfortable with that. I've made my peace with that.
No. We're gonna go to once things open up again here in Hong Kong and we can travel. We'll be in London, and I'm gonna take you to the shows you need to see. We have to educate you, James.
Fine. I will hold you to that. I'm open to new experiences for sure. But in the meantime, I thought it worked great. It's just shy of greatness, but only for those reasons. So I am going to agree with you and give it 4 Sunday brunch mimosas.
Finally, you're copying me instead of me copying you. Fantastic.
It was going to happen eventually.
Hey, everybody, that wraps it up for this episode. Don't forget, there's information in the box below where you can listen to the audio version of the podcasts of today's episode.
And yes, please remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. Check out the other videos in our channel. down there. We've done 25 episodes, lots of good stuff there. And let us know in the comments what you thought of Tick, Tick, Boom, what you thought of our thoughts on Tick, Tick, Boom, and what else you'd like to hear us and watch us review going forward. Until then, goodbye.
Next episode. Bye-bye.